Hey everybody, and welcome back for another deep dive.
It's great to be here.
Today we're tackling this idea of prevention. And why it can feel like such an uphill battle, even when we know it's good for us.
Right.
You sent over some really interesting stuff for this one.
Yeah.
A document all about prevention strategies,
Yeah.
somebody's resume, and even a YouTube video.
A pretty interesting mix.
It is, and get this, there's a connection to nuclear engineering in all of this.
I'm intrigued.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be a fascinating deep dive.
Well, it's funny how prevention on the surface seems so simple,
Right.
but psychologically it's actually incredibly complex.
Absolutely. The document actually starts off with this story
Okay.
about a man refusing rescue during a flood.
Oh, wow.
He's on his rooftop,
Mm-hmm.
the water's rising, and he's convinced God will save him.
Oh, no.
Boats, a helicopter, he refuses them all.
I feel like I've heard this before.
Yeah, it's a really powerful metaphor
It is.
for our resistance to prevention.
You know, this tendency we have to prioritize immediate gratification over future benefits. It's like deeply ingrained in us.
Yeah.
You know, the YouTube video risk prevention uphill battle kind of echoes this and suggests it all goes back to our evolution. Like our ancestors were focused on immediate survival, not some abstract long-term planning.
So we're fighting our own wiring when it comes to prevention.
In a way, yeah.
Makes sense, especially when you think about how hard it is to really grasp the consequences of not doing something.
Exactly. Like, it's one thing to know exercise is good for you.
Yeah.
But it's another to, like, viscerally feel the difference between a future where you did and one where you didn't.
Huge difference.
The YouTube video actually suggests visualization and simulation as tools to bridge this gap.
Okay. How does that work?
Well,
I mean, how can visualizing something actually make prevention more appealing?
okay, so imagine seeing like side-by-side profiles.
Right.
One person who's been using that isotone device we talked about before, still active and mobile in their 80s.
Okay.
And next to them, someone struggling with age-related decline, maybe needing help for like basic tasks.
Wow, yeah.
That contrast can make those future consequences feel so much more real.
That's a powerful image.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not just telling me exercise is good.
Right.
You're showing me what my life could look like.
Yeah.
It's like you're holding up a mirror to my potential future self.
Precisely. And the document brings up how this relates to this Jewish concept of halakha.
Okay.
Essentially, it's a system of Jewish law that legally obligates people to prioritize their health.
So it's not just a suggestion. It's like a duty to take care of yourself.
Exactly.
That's a fascinating perspective on prevention.
It is.
But let's shift gears for a second to that nuclear engineering connection.
Okay.
The resume you sent over is for this guy, Levin Emoten, an expert with tons of experience in nuclear engineering and safety.
Interesting.
Seems a world away from, say, preventing muscle strain.
Yeah, you're right. But think about the stakes in nuclear engineering.
Oh, yeah.
Like even a small error can be catastrophic.
Right.
So Emoten's work probably involved, rigorous risk assessment and proactive prevention to avoid disaster.
So are we saying that preventing a nuclear meltdown and preventing a pulled muscle have something in common?
In principle, absolutely.
Okay.
Whether it's a meltdown or a muscle strain.
Right.
The core idea is understanding and mitigating risks before they become problems.
That's a connection I never would have made.
I know, it's pretty cool.
But how do we take these high-stakes nuclear principles and apply them to everyday life?
That's the question.
That's where things get really practical for our listener, right?
Absolutely. Emoten's experience probably involved a deep understanding of risk assessment and a really proactive approach to mitigating potential threats. But instead of nuclear reactors, we're talking about our health finances, relationships, even home maintenance. That proactive mindset can make all the difference.
So we've talked about why prevention is tough, the power of visualization, and this unexpected link to nuclear engineering.
Right.
But what does this all mean?
Yeah.
How can our listener use this information?
Well, the key takeaway, I think, is that prevention doesn't have to be this daunting, abstract concept.
Okay.
By making those future benefits more concrete and relatable, we can bridge the gap between our present and future selves.
I like that it's about empowering ourselves to make smarter choices.
Totally.
Not just for today, but for the years to come. It's an investment in our well-being.
Absolutely.
But hold on, before we move on, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier.
Sure.
Visualizing the costs of inaction.
Yeah.
That really stuck with me.
It's a powerful concept, right?
It is.
The YouTube video emphasized that instead of just focusing on the positive outcomes of prevention,
Oh.
what if we also visualize the potential consequences of not taking action?
Whoa, yeah, that changes things. It's
Yeah.
like an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Exactly.
But instead of just hearing it,
Yeah.
we're actually seeing it play out. This feels very connected to Nemoten's work with nuclear reactors,
Yes, see that.
where understanding risk is so critical.
It is.
So we can apply those same rigorous methods
Yeah.
to everyday choices, whether it's our diet, exercise, or financial planning.
Absolutely.
This is exactly why I love these deep dives.
You too.
You never know where the insights will come from.
It's true.
So how can our listener tailor these prevention strategies to their own life?
Well,
After all, what works for one person might not work for another.
right.
We all have different motivations, fears, and goals.
Well, the document suggests tapping into what truly matters to each individual.
Okay.
What are their values, their aspirations? What kind of future do they envision for themselves? It's about framing prevention in a way that aligns with, those personal values and aspirations. So it's not just about avoiding illness. It's about living a life that feels meaningful and fulfilling.
So instead of focusing on like abstract health advice,
Right.
we connect it to things we genuinely care about.
Exactly. For some people, that might be staying active enough to travel and spend time with loved ones as they age.
Yeah.
For others, it might be about, maintaining their cognitive function, staying sharp for their work or hobbies.
It makes prevention feel less like a chore and more like an investment
Yes.
in a future you actually want.
Exactly.
And this is where those visualization techniques we talked about
Right.
become really powerful.
Yeah, imagine visualizing yourself in your 80s still hiking with your grandkids because you took care of your knees, or finishing that novel you always wanted to write because your mind is still sharp.
It's powerful stuff.
It is.
Those images could be so much more motivating
Oh, yeah.
than a lecture about cholesterol.
For sure.
We've been talking a lot about the individual, but I wonder, are there any real-world examples of how this kind of approach to prevention plays out on a larger scale?
Well, actually, the document you sent touches on this very thing.
Oh, does it?
It highlights the isotone device again.
Okay.
Not just as a tool for individual prevention, but as a potential solution for a much bigger problem, the rising cost of healthcare associated with age-related decline.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So by helping individuals stay healthier longer,
Mm-hmm.
could something like isotone actually contribute to a more sustainable healthcare system overall?
That's the idea.
Wow.
It's a fascinating example of how individual choices, when multiplied across a population, can have a ripple effect on larger societal systems.
It's like by taking care of ourselves, we're also in a way taking care of each other.
Precisely. And this ties back to that unexpected connection with nuclear engineering.
Okay.
Remember how we talked about Lev Nemoten's work involving risk assessment and prevention on a massive scale?
Yes.
Well, think about it. A healthy population contributes to a stronger, more resilient society.
Right.
It's like a societal safety net, similar to the backup systems and fail-safes they build into nuclear reactors.
Wow. Okay, that's blowing my mind a little bit.
It's a cool connection.
We're talking about connecting personal choices,
Yeah.
about things like exercise and diet to the overall well-being of an entire society.
It might seem like a stretch, but those connections are real. The document even uses the phrase collective resilience
I like that.
to describe this idea.
Collective resilience.
When we invest in our own health and well-being,
Right.
we're also, in a sense, investing in the collective resilience of our communities and society as a whole.
So we've gone from this very personal struggle with prevention to this idea of collective resilience.
Yeah.
And even touched on nuclear engineering along the way.
That's right.
But before we wrap up, I want to bring it back to our listener.
Okay.
What are some tangible things they can take away from this?
Well, firstly, I think it's important to remember that prevention doesn't have to be about deprivation or fear. It's about making informed, conscious choices that set us up for a healthier, happier, and more fulfilling life. It's about embracing the long game.
And recognizing that even small, consistent choices can have a huge impact down the line.
Exactly. And remember, what resonates with one person might not work for another. The document emphasizes finding the right key for the lock, so to speak.
That's a great analogy. We all have different motivations, fears, and goals. How can we personalize these prevention strategies to make them more effective?
Well, as we discussed, the document suggests tapping into what truly matters to each individual. Like, what are their values, their aspirations, what kind of future do they envision for themselves?
So it's about framing prevention in a way that aligns with those personal values and aspirations, not just about avoiding illness, but living a life that feels truly meaningful.
Exactly. For some, that might mean being able to travel and enjoy time with loved ones in their later years. For others, it might be about staying mentally sharp and engaged in their work or hobbies.
It transforms prevention from a chore into an investment in the things that matter most.
Absolutely. And remember those powerful visualization techniques we discussed.
Yeah.
Imagine helping someone see themselves in their 80s still hiking with their grandkids because they took care of their knees, or finishing that book they always wanted to write because their mind is still sharp.
It's about making that connection between the choices we make today and the life we want to live tomorrow.
And I think that's a powerful message to end on. Prevention isn't about deprivation or fear. It's about making informed, conscious choices that set us up for a healthier, happier, and more fulfilling life.
Yeah.
It's about embracing the long game and recognizing that even the small, consistent choices we make today can have a profound impact on our future selves.
I love that. And who knows, maybe by applying those high-stakes prevention strategies from fields like nuclear engineering to our everyday lives, we can create a ripple effect of positive change that extends beyond ourselves.
It's inspiring to think about, isn't it?
It really is. Well, this has been an incredible deep dive. Thank you so much for sharing these sources. They were truly eye-opening.
It was my pleasure. It's always fascinating to explore these multifaceted topics.
To our listener, we hope this conversation has given you some new tools and perspectives to think about when it comes to prevention. Remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about progress, one small step at a time. And who knows, maybe those small steps will lead to a future that's even brighter than you imagined. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.